Welcome along to the latest edition of the Pixiecast, and I'm back in Australia again today, and I am talking to Luke Rosenbrock all the way from Melbourne. Good day, Luke. How are you?
Slanjava, how are you?
Very well, thank you. How's life treating you over there?
It's been good. We're in a bit of COVID lockdown over this part of the world, which just our government trying to get on top of everything here and try to get the economy going. And it's probably a similar situation in many parts of the world. I was just been enjoying it at the moment, though, for the simplicity that it's provided in life. So trying to find the silver linings where I can.
Sure.
Because it's been pretty hard world out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. And what is it that you do for a job, Luke?
I work in sports television. You've probably seen me on TV doing things like slow motion replays and highlights packages. And name a sport, I've probably worked on it. Sporting's my business. What I've done, four or five Olympic Games.
Wow.
Usually the aquatics on that. My usual week in, week out, or month in, month out work is motorsports, the local supercars, but I do work on the F1s as well, so get around there. And that enigma of a sport, the Aussie rules football, I do get to work on that as well. So
So when you're doing all these events, are you actually going to the venues and doing it live from the venues, or are they feeding you the pictures?
For many, many years we were. We'd go to a venue and I saw some of the greatest car parks in the world, and there'd be a truck parked there and all the camera feeds would come into it, and I'd be sitting in this little booth in the back of a truck doing all of that work. So always 100 meters from fame, you know, never quite there. Nowadays, however, not every sport, but a lot of them use fiber optics, and a lot of the sports are now what they call hubs. So there's a hub in most major cities nowadays, and a lot of the major cities. And I can go and be working on an event that's on the other side of the country with live camera feeds directly to me.
Wow.
And so I can do things, you know, I don't travel as much anymore. So a bit of the glamour goes there, a bit of the paid packet goes there as well. But I don't have to deal with stadium parking and things like that, and trying to get out of big crowds
and airport lounges.
Yeah, airport lounges. Yeah, plenty of them. Yeah. It's funny. It's so many people think that, oh, you travel here, you travel there. That must be great, such a luxurious thing. I can tell you now, there's only so much transit that you can bear.
Sure.
After a while, it gets tiring. How many airplane seats you squeeze yourself into? It starts to get tiring after a while. So it's kind of nice to do a job that's not too far away from home. So
sure, but 5 Olympics, wow, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's it. I'm actually, I was supposed to be, well, what are we now?
Tokyo.
Oh no, we would have been past Tokyo now, but I was supposed to be over in Tokyo. And I just got an email the other day confirming my booking for next year. Because they are trying to keep it going. At least that's the hope.
Yeah, well, having an Australian wife, as you know, it's I know exactly what you mean by long haul flights, and that it is a killer, isn't it? So I can understand why you don't miss that too much. But
no.
An exciting world, though, for you to be living in. And born and bred in Melbourne?
Country Victoria, place called Benalla, which is maybe about an hour and 2 hours north of Melbourne. Lovely place to grow up. It's farmland, beautiful river running through the middle of it with a lake in it. So I spend a lot of time swimming and climbing trees and doing all those sort of things. Getting around on a BMX, because that's what you got around on back in the 70s and 80s.
So how does a country boy get into the high technology of doing sports video editing?
It's interesting. Out of school, when everyone's asked me, what do you want to what do you want to do when you leave school? And there's me, it's a, 15, 16, 17, scratching my head going, I've got no idea. Someone tell me what to do here.
Yeah.
So school finished and all of a sudden I was left hanging in the wind. I went up around my area, there's a bit of fruit picking. So I went out and fruit picked for a while where I weighed up my options. I'd applied for a few university courses in fine art, which interestingly enough I got into, but I never took up. And around about that time, I'd submitted my folio into AFTRS, which is the Australian Radio, Film and Television School. And it's in Sydney. And it was just my art folio, my media folio, nothing great. It was like high school work. And I ended up getting an interview for a traineeship there.
Wow.
Didn't get the position, but my mother, being the diplomat that she was, said, call them up and thank them. You never know, next year you might get a go at it.
Uh-huh.
So I did that. And they said, look, try Channel 7, which is one of the local networks here.
Yeah.
They're running something similar.
Okay.
Once again, I applied for that. I got an interview, which was pretty impressive because we're talking like 5,000 applicants and they only interviewed maybe 20 to 50 people. And I'm fresh out of high school.
Yeah.
Other people have probably been to university courses and things for this. Once again, did not get the position. But about a week or two later, I got a call. Was looking up all the old archive videotapes, keeping track of all the new fresh stock and things like that.
Yeah.
And I did that, and that basically within a half a year, I was editing.
Okay.
I got I got put onto the traineeship I'd applied for. I was editing, and next thing I know, I was, that was back in the day, reel to reel. So we had reel to reel, and I had to thread tape up through this path, and you had to sync things up, and there's all these monitors and bits and pieces, and you had to color correct images, and audio had to be stereo, dual stuff. So I did that for a while, and then I went out to see the world. Travelled around Australia a little bit, not much, nothing to talk about. But when I came back to Melbourne, I got asked by a friend, "Do you want to do a job freelance?" So what's this freelancing? And he said, "Oh, well, they'll say the job, give you the hours, and you give them the rate." And I said, "Oh, that's pretty good." So I did that, and then since then, I've been a freelance contractor, hired gun basically, and all sorts of sporting. I think you've frozen.
That's right, you're back. You're back. It is dropping out occasionally, but it's good enough to carry on.
That's all right. That's all right. So that's kind of how I got into sports and doing what I do. 26 years of it now. So So fresh out of school, pretty much.
Yeah. Wow, exciting. Yeah. Sort of job that lots of people would covet and be really excited to be able to do. So
it's funny. I used to joke about the fact that I got paid to watch sports. And I do, but at the same time, I'm analysing sports, and sometimes it's funny. I can work on some of the biggest events in the world, and even though I'm looking at it, not see a frame of it.
Yeah.
Because I'm so busy actually working on it that I don't take in the grasp of comprehend exactly the full picture of what's happening, because I'm working on a part of it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So we will get on to Pixies in a minute, but my first trip to Australia was in 2000. So into Sydney, and I was there in February, so just before the Sydney Olympics. So we went, my mate and I, who I was over there with, we went to Homebush Bay and did the whole tour of the Olympic Stadium and everything, and took photos of the finishing line and all that sort of stuff. And I guess that you were actually working there at the time.
I did that one, and then the Paralympics to follow. So Yeah, my thing that I've worked on mainly throughout all of the Olympics has been the aquatics.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Seems to be the Australian specialty.
Yeah.
I think what happens with the Olympics, they shuffle out the contract to different countries around the world,
Mm-hmm.
and I think back then we managed to pick up the swimming, and ever since every Olympic comes around, we do the aquatics.
Okay.
Whereas I think it might be the UK team does all the track and field.
Okay. All right.
And then there's, I think, the Dutch team, they take care of TV crew, they take care of all of the hockey, and then so forth. So different television companies specialize in different sports. So I've become an aquatic specialist.
Excellent. Anyway, we better talk about this band called Pixies.
Who's that?
Where did it all begin for you then?
Okay, so this will take you back to probably 3 years before I left school.
Mm-hmm.
Probably at the time people were asking me, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I'd moved from Benalla, the country Victorian place, to Melbourne. I'd been sent to boarding school.
Okay.
The reason being my parents had gone their separate ways, and they had a 16-year-old boy, and they said, well, what do we do with him? So I think the easiest option was for them was to ship me off to boarding school. So I went from running around country life to all of a sudden being stuck in the big smoke, as we call it, in a boarding house with all these other people. And the interesting thing about that place was that I all of a sudden got stuck in a house with 30 guys who had brothers in years above.
Yeah.
All these guys had different music tastes, filtering in from all parts of the world.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like I had all these brothers. You know how you hear people go, oh, I heard this music because my big brother was listening to it. He was at uni or something like that. I had 30 or so of these guys filtering that music into me. So my taste in music became extremely eclectic. But initially coming from Benalla, I was listening to AC/DC and Metallica and Motorhead and Megadeth and things like that.
Yeah.
I was quite into the metal there for a bit. And
we all go through that phase.
Yeah, I still go through it every, at least once a year.
Yeah.
And one of the guys in the bed over next to me, I was sitting there one night, I said, oh, have you got anything to listen to? He handed me that tape.
Wow.
This was probably in the year of 91.
Okay.
And he handed me this tape. And I think the first 4 or 5 tracks floored me. And it was probably at about Is She Weird that all of a sudden my brain took a breath.
Okay.
And I went, what have I just heard?
So we're talking Bossa Nova then?
Wow. It was Bossa Nova. Yeah. So I don't know if he got that tape back off me. I actually might still have that tape because it became such a coveted thing for me. The interesting thing was that of course led to the exploration of the previous albums. And it was just like, wow, this band, amazing. And then in the same year, later that year, Tromp came out, which we've just celebrated the anniversary of. And I was like, this band that I've just all of a sudden found this absolute love for, I found they've got old stuff. And look, they're bringing out new stuff. Yeah. And then as we all know, the inevitable happened.
They split up.
And they called it quits. Which was probably one of the most gutting things of my life, was having this absolute love for this band, getting so into them and realizing that they were never going to come to Australia.
Yeah.
That was just this, it devastated me for so long.
So at that point, you hadn't seen them live then at that stage then?
They didn't come to Australia until 2007.
Okay.
So that what was it, 2006? They got back together for, they were touring around a bit there. But before that, no, it was quits. So I thought that was done and dusted. I'd never see them. So yeah, when they came out in 2007, I think I saw them twice. So yeah. But yeah, so that's how I got into them. It was just that, have you got some music for me to listen to from a guy sleeping a bed or two down from me?
And out of all those guys that you were sharing a dorm with, and all the music that was being shared around, it was Pixies that grabbed you.
Yeah, there's plenty around. Yeah, there was so much. That's the one that stuck with me, though. Yeah, it did. That was really the one that resonated with me. I remember one of my friends at school, and we were both Pixies mad, and we'd sit there and quiz each other about stuff. We'd pull out a lyric or a word, and we'd just have to, what's that from, and try to name it, try to fool each other.
Okay. Yeah. So, favorite album, would it be Bossa Nova because of what it means to you, or do you have
another
indeed.
Favorite? Yeah. Can't go past Bossa Nova. Yeah. Look, I it's funny. I loved Bossa Nova. Afterwards, when I started exploring them, I went back and I only had access to Surfer Rosa as Surfer Rosa Come On Pilgrim, a dual album. And so I always see them as the one. And so I know that's two LPs, EPs, LPs, EPs. But combined thing, I did have a big flirting love affair with that for a long time, just for the rawness of it. I loved that raw sound. But what I think that Tromp did for me was show me how sonically beautiful they could be. Like the sonics on that album, their progression from that raw sound early on to, it was interstellar. The sound coming out of Trompe Le Monde. It was like like someone had hit hyperdrive. I'm using space analogies here because I've gone from raw guttural things of Surfer Rosa Come On Pilgrim.
Yeah.
We've gone warp drive. That's how it felt to me, that sort of progression.
Yeah.
I haven't mentioned Doolittle, but Doolittle definitely does have a special spot in my heart because I like screamy, yelly things, and that album hits me in the guts every time. So yeah.
So a favourite track then from all the Pixies LPs?
Ooh, I'm going to the paperwork.
Okay.
Paperwork, because I knew you were going to ask me this one.
You've done your prep. Good man.
Yeah. So Issue Weird, I have to give credence to that.
Okay.
Because Issue Weird was the first track that really from that track though, that album, All Over the World's the standout. And it's interesting that in Trompe Le Monde, there's Bird Dreams of Olympus Mons.
Yeah.
Which to me has nearly the same sort of ethereal feeling that All Over the World has. And then more recently, we've gone to Daniel Boone on the Eyrie album. And all three of them have a sort of I don't know, it's nearly, I guess, because I really like the shoegaze sort of sound as well too. And all those three tracks really blend into that. So I'm gonna force you on this. Yeah, I was going to say, I would say All Over the World from Bossa Nova, but with more recent listening, I'll put it down to Daniel Boone.
Okay, excellent. So that's only the second choice off Beneath the Eyrie. Dean yesterday, who I spoke to, he chose Silver Bullet. So
boom, yeah.
So okay, Daniel Boone, that's your Pixies choice. So so you were pretty gutted when they split up then?
Yeah, I was.
And Frank Black went off on his own way, and Kim went her own way to form Breeders, and that. Did you follow both of them with their different careers?
I bought. I think Last Splash came out before Frank Black,
Can't
or at
remember
least
the chronology.
maybe.
They had
Yeah,
Pod. They had Pod, didn't they? Pod was the
yeah,
first.
but I wasn't. That was pre. I think that was pre-breakup, wasn't it? I wasn't
think it was
aware of the
actually,
Breeders except for in magazines before then.
Mm-hmm.
Hadn't listened to them. Last Splash, wow, amazing album. Frank Black, an amazing album. Frank Black kept on getting played. That was the difference there for me. I appreciate Last Splash. I think it's an amazing album.
Mm-hmm.
Frank Black still got played. Teenager of the Year, for some strange reason, I skipped over.
Okay.
And it might have had to do with Headache.
Right.
I don't mind Headache, but it was a single.
Okay.
The release. Yeah. And it didn't really rub me the right way. Oh. So I just kind of never delved there.
Okay.
Having said that, then Cult of Ray followed after that, and I was all about that, loved it. But it took me a couple of years to pick it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I've never really got into Cult of Ray, so.
Well, I bought it, and it probably sat in the shelves gathering dust for about 2 years.
Yeah.
Put it on one day, and I said, "Oh, this is wow. Well, how come I haven't played this before?"
Yeah.
But I took a little bit of a hiatus there for a number of years, around about when Teenager came out. Having said that, I've had an amazing exploration back into those works. Pretty deeply, I get a bit obsessional about music. So when I play something, I do it to death. Not to death. Yeah. I dive deep.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So a favourite Frank Black track?
Ooh, so this was the question I was going to ask you. You were talking Frank Black or were we talking Black Francis?
Either. I'm not going to get to... there's no real hard and fast rules, so I'm very lenient with people.
Fair enough. I'm going to my list again.
Okay.
Right, so what did I write down here? This is the one where I've got lots of choices, but nothing definitive.
Okay.
Probably, I have to give a shout out to 2 tracks, which is Do What You Want, Ganeshwar, and Dead Man's Curve, both off Abba Baba.
Yeah.
Which is just the demo tracks, and it's just Charles, he and his acoustic.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't heard those 2 and how he throws himself into them, emotional, and that rhythm guitar, that guitar playing, wow. It's just, there's nothing else there. That's just those 2. And it's a beautiful thing. There's a lot of energy in it.
Yeah.
I nearly said Dead Man's Curve for this one, just for the energy of that song. But I think out of all of the ones, probably have to go with Your Mouth Into Mine.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is off the Bluefinger. Yeah, that's
okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess he'd been playing for a bit there, and there was a polish about it that I really enjoyed. So.
So you didn't see him touring. He didn't come to. I guess he would have come to Melbourne at some stage.
No, he did come to Melbourne. But for some, I guess as I was saying, there was that bit where, when I was in that boarding house and I had the 30 plus other blokes influencing me with music. I had lots of paths to follow, not just the Pixies and then Frank Black and Kim Deal or wherever we're going with that. I was in all sorts of music, and probably a big reason for that was when the Pixies broke up. I was probably in my last year of school.
Yeah,
and I worked out how to get out at nights from the boarding house.
Okay.
And guess who hit the town and found nightclubs? And there happened to be a night which was called a Death to the Pixies. It was a Pixies wake.
Okay.
And it was a nightclub at a little club called Rave, Dream Nightclub in Carlton, Victoria, Melbourne.
Yeah.
And it was a little upstairs thing with a checkerboard floor, and they had a Pixies wake. And I got out of boarding school in there and I danced all night. It was probably my first nightclub experience.
Cool.
and it set me down that path.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it led me into the way of evil and nighttime living, and I've never looked
Wine,
back.
women, and song, I think we call it over here.
That's pretty much it. Yeah. So yeah, I got all these other influences there from the indie scene, the punk scene, all sorts of other musical scenes. So I roved wide and far, many nightclubs, many parties, many gigs.
And of course, Melbourne is sort of known, isn't it? It's the epicenter really of the music scene in Australia as well, more so than Sydney.
I was going to say that one thing that Melbourne did have was the ludicrous amount of pub gigs.
Yeah.
So the live music was everywhere. It's like you could step out any night of the week and you'd find gigs at pubs. And most often than not, nearly every night of the week, while I was young and footloose and fancy free and the body still held up, I was out and about in it. You've got to get amongst it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So what other influences have you got then? Nick Cave fan, are you?
Probably came a little late to Nick Cave. I am a Nick Cave fan, but came late to him. Let's see.
Of course, In Excess, of course, the big Australian
I grew up
band.
on In Excess, definitely. Yeah, it's interesting. I had a few tapes when I was growing up. In Excess was one. Strange one.
You've mentioned AC/DC already, which is your birthright. You've mentioned AC/DC already, which of course is your birthright.
Motorhead on the other. Now that was a most bizarre tape because you get Queen on one side and Motorhead on the other, and it was a bit weird. So I grew up with all sorts of stuff there, and AC/DC and Beatles and all the classics.
All good stuff.
Yeah.
And I noticed there that you're wearing a Pixies sweater. Is that
that's the
okay. Cool.
Right.
Very nice. Yeah. Are you big into the t-shirts and the posters and things like that?
T-shirt. I've always been into t-shirts. I've probably lost more t-shirts than I've owned over the years. Or they've been ripped off me at gigs or. I've probably only got 4 Pixies proper t-shirts, and then the rest of them are our group t-shirts, and I'll probably double that amount just in the ones that we've got from World of Strange, So,
Yeah. And have you met up with any other members of the Facebook group?
Yeah. Okay, so here's one. I'm not sure how many of you know, but the last gig the Pixies played before we all got croned was in Melbourne.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go. Good research. And so we had a little bit of a meet up that night. I'd met her at a Wolf Alice gig.
Sorry, you just dropped out then. Who did you meet up with?
Okay, so before the Pixies gig, the other person I'd met up with was Tasha.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd met her at a Wolf Alice gig, and we had a blast that night. It was like we knew each other forever.
Yeah.
So she's definitely a sister to me. And then on the night of the gig at the famous Espy at St Kilda in Melbourne, we all had a bit of a get together. And the first people I ran into were the Simons, Michael and Vienna, and then after that, Daniela turned up, or Princess. Adam hadn't turned up. I think Gail came over from over New Zealand, I think, as well.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, I've spoken to Gail on one of these videos.
Yeah, so there's a lot of crew there. It was a great gig. Must say that I got to meet Miles there, which was really cool.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
He's a lovely guy.
He is.
And at that stage, he was doing a he was making a big show for, he was doing what was it, display up before the gig for Simon's before the gig.
Okay.
Up on stage. So,
Yeah.
that was nice. And I reckon the standout for that gig, if I remember rightly, was Something Against You. Now, I don't think I've been rocked by a live song. Like their gig was something, but then if you took that, let's ramp it up, that extra gear, that one song, just push that right up there real quick. That's one of the most amazing live songs I've ever seen.
Were you down the front for that as well? Or
no,
did you kept out of trouble?
I was actually it was a seated gig. How's that?
Oh, okay. Like right. Yeah.
Having said that, by probably about a quarter of the way in, we were standing on the seats.
Yeah.
We're in the seats, but we're standing on them. So
okay.
That was yeah.
Not quite the same as being in the mosh pit though for Something Against You.
No, that's it. Yeah, I'm sure they probably had to replace a few seats after it from people jumping up and down on them. So,
as John Lennon would have said famously, you were just rattling your jewellery.
Exactly right. Yes. So it was lovely to meet everyone there.
So that's it. I guess that's the only time though that you've been able to have a happening.
It has been. Adam, Tasha, and Danielle tried to have a dinner one night with me, but I'm working in sports.
Yeah.
I work on late nights, public holidays, and weekends. So basically, for the last 20-something years, social life has been a real seesawing affair. I don't really have a huge amount because of that.
Well, it's just gone midnight. It's just gone midnight for you now where you are talking to you now. So
it has, yes. Yeah. Oh, I'm awake.
There we go.
Yes. So they decided to get together and have a bit of a dinner one night, and I was supposed to get along to that, but I got called in last minute. So that's what happens with the contractor work. You take the work or you don't get paid. So
no. Indeed, no, absolutely. So that, so when you saw them, then that was the Beneath the Eyrie tour.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Though it was the Beneath the Eyrie tour. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But so I've seen them probably 2007. I think I saw them 2 gigs.
Yeah.
And then 2010 they came back. I think that might have been the Doolittle gig.
Okay.
And then, so now you're testing me. I've forgotten how many times I've seen them.
Did they come
only
to
a handful.
Yeah. Did they come to Australia for the Surfer Rosa Come On Pilgrim anniversary tour?
So that was the I was sitting there going, was the Eyrie one, was that the Doolittle one? But no, it was a combined Eyrie Surfer Rosa.
Okay.
Come On Pilgrim, sorry.
Right, okay. Yeah. Got you. Okay, cool. So you saw Kate Hester's artwork then for Caribou?
Oh, hello.
There you go. Back again.
There you go. It's like one of Dave's magic tricks. We just needed a puff of smoke to reappear.
I guess you get this kind of thing all the time with the work that you're in.
What, the Zoom meetings?
Yeah, and sort of technology failing you in that sometimes.
You know what? Probably, yeah, we do. I used to actually crash machines all the time, and I use supercharged computers, and I'll crash them if there's. But most of the technology's been pretty stable since the early 2000s. You know, I think that Sydney Olympics in 2000, the broadcast technology started to up its game.
Yeah.
And every big event like the Olympics, like the World Cup soccer, things like that, they up the technology, and they've got people sitting there writing programs while the events are on and doing the next patch, then the next patch. So you walk out of one of those events, which might be a week long, and and the technology's progressed at least a year ahead of itself in just that 1 week, because they've had everyone just smashing it. So yeah, the broadcast technology is pretty amazing nowadays, actually. Yeah, and it's pretty stable.
Good.
Unlike
what? Unlike now.
I was going to say, unlike Australians' broadband network, which is not the most stable thing.
You'll get there, don't worry.
Yeah.
I can't let an Australian man go without talking a little bit about sport. So, an AFL fan, a cricket fan as well?
I like the cricket.
When you're winning?
Yes. I had the pleasure of working on an Ashes tour.
Okay.
Can't remember much about it except that we won.
Well, that often happens.
That was a pretty wild one. Traveling around the country, and it was one of those gigs where you would you do the match or the test.
Yeah.
You'd pack it up, and by about 1 or 2 in the morning, all in shipping crates.
Yeah.
And you go back to the hotel and get about an hour's sleep, or at least just pack your bags to get onto the plane to go to the next city and set it up. And it was a moving circus. It was pretty full on, that Ashes tour. But yeah, the AFL, which is the Australian Football League, those who don't know, yes, I am a fan. I've worked on it for years. That was the first sport that I really started on. I barracked for, strangely enough, a team called the Gold Coast Suns. Now, I don't live in the Gold Coast, but working in football for years, I stopped barracking for a team, and then eventually one day said I'll barrack for the next team that came into it, and happened to be the Suns.
Okay. It must be a rare thing, a man in Melbourne not supporting one of the Melbourne teams, because you've got so many to choose from in Melbourne as well.
I know, and it's funny. All the people in Melbourne, they say, "Oh, you barrack for the Suns," and I said, "Yes. There's 2 of us at least, you know." So I do know one other Suns supporter, so that's funny.
So you're not alone then.
No, interestingly enough, I mean, I moved away from Melbourne in probably about 6-7 years ago, and moved up to the Gold Coast. Oddly enough, not to follow the team. I'm not that much of a diehard. So I ended up moving near the Gold Coast, and eventually came back down to Melbourne. So some people move north to follow your football team. No, I didn't move to the Gold Coast to follow. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, well, we've come to the last question, which I have pre-warned you about.
Oh yes.
So it comes from Jo Kirkham, who's a lovely woman who lives near Liverpool.
Yes.
And originally it was just for Adam Short, but I've kept it going for some people in these Pixiecasts. So it goes something along the lines of, you're in a dream and you suddenly find yourself naked on stage in front of thousands of people. Which Pixies song are you going to sing?
I'm wondering if I can actually sing a Frank Black and the Catholics song here.
Yeah, there's no rules. There are no rules. If you're prepared to stand naked on the stage, then you can sing what the hell you like, to be honest.
Well, if that case, I might sing So Hard to Make Things Out, because I think that'd be quite apt for the performance.
Who's that by? I don't know that song, but
that's a Frank Black and the Catholics song.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So it's on I think it's on Pistolero.
Okay.
Worth checking out. It's an amazing album anyway. But I just think maybe that's an apt one to sing when you're starkers in front of everyone. Yeah.
Luke, it's
Yes.
great to speak to you. You've been a good sport, and nice to meet you. And thank you very much for your time and for staying up late as well. So I'll let you get off to bed. I'll let you finish your nightcap, which you've got there, and
Yes.
you can see yourself into the weekend.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Look, I probably did most of the talking there. It's good to bend your ear.
As all good
And,
Aussies do.
as we do. And love to everyone out there, and peace.
Thank you, mate. All the best.
Catch ya. Bye.
Cheers.